In this video, we're going to show you how to install the passenger side motor mount on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located on the right side of your engine. Before tackling this job, you want to disconnect the battery. Start with the negative terminal using a 13mm socket. Now if your bolt starts to spin, use an open-ended wrench or pliers to hold it. Back the bolt off, give it a twist, and lift it up. Now that we have the battery removed, we want to go ahead and disconnect our fuse box right here. We just want to pull this up and out of the way. We're going to use a small flathead screwdriver, and we're going to move these tabs inward. There's 4 of them. We're going to push in on that and gently lift up and come to the opposite side and do the same. Push that inward. And these are little locking tabs. Once we get these up, should be able to wiggle this up and out. And what we want to do here is once this is pulled up and moved over to the side a little bit, there's a bolt on the inside up against the fender securing our battery tray in place. There's a bolt here. There's going to be a bolt down inside the hole on the battery tray over here. And then there's another bolt on the forward side right beside the radiator. We want to get it loosened and remove those there and pull a battery tray up and out. Now we're going to access the 10mm nut on the inside here. We're going to use a deep socket on this here so that reaches over the stud. And we did spray this down with some rust penetrant. There's that nut there. Go ahead and set that aside. Remove our 10mm bolt. I'm going to use an extension with my ratchet. Go underneath the fuse box here. On the front passenger side corner of this battery tray, there's another bolt down inside this little pocket here. In order to gain access to that comfortably, we're going to use our trim tool, and we're going to grab underneath this little wire harness button here. We want to pop this up and out. Go ahead and pull that out of the way. That'll give us access to that bolt inside. Now the bolt down inside here is normally a 10mm. Ours is a little bit rusted, so we ended up having to go an alternate way to go ahead, loosen and remove this here. But you go ahead and use your 10mm, loosen and remove this bolt. And once you get your tray up to this point here, there's a little button right here. There's a little electric connector on the bottom. So you're going to reach underneath, press in on that tab, disconnect that, and continue to work your tray up and out. Use your trim tool to pop the button for this harness on the front. By doing this here, it's going to allow us a little more play with this harness to get this tray up and out. Now right here is the connector that we had separated off the bottom of the tray. You just push on the tab on the top side and pull that off. Go ahead and pull your battery tray up and out and set that aside. Before we disconnect the motor mount, we're going to use our jack. We're going to use our pole jack underneath the harmonic balancer. Now, if you have a regular jack, a floor jack, you can do this. I would recommend using a block of wood between your jack and the harmonic balancer here. Now we just have it supported. We're not raising the vehicle. We're not pushing the motor up. We're literally just coming in contact with it and just give it a little bit of a little bit of pressure there to support that. Now the motor mount bracket itself is held on to the unibody of the chassis here. And up top here we have two 15mm bolts. There's one back and one forward here. And we want to go ahead, loosen and remove those. The main reason we have to remove this bracket here is on the motor mount itself. There are two upper bolts that we need to gain access to. So these bolts here, there's one on the front side of our motor mount, and then there's one just behind the motor mount on the block. Now let's remove our two fender well bolts. Using your 19mm socket, loosen and remove the lug nuts. Once we have all the lug nuts removed, go ahead and grab the wheel, remove that, and set it aside. Through the passenger side wheel well is going to be two 15mm bolts. There's one right on the opposite side of the coil spring here, and then one just above the sway bar end link. Go ahead, loosen and remove these. Remove the through bolt through the motor mount and the bracket using your 18mm wrench on the nut side. Swivel head, 18mm socket and extension with your ratchet or impact gun on the other side. I'm going to remove the nut. Now the bolt itself, if you can't pull that bolt out freely, what we'll have to do is use our jack underneath the front side of the engine to go ahead and adjust this up or down a little bit. Raising the engine just a little bit. That allows us to pull our bolt out. Now we disconnected our bracket and we jacked up the motor a little bit, and we're going to put our swivel socket and extension up between the motor mount and the bracket and try and get that onto our 15mm bolt. And we're going to come around to the back side, and we're to the inside of our lower control arm, but to the outside of the upper control arm. And we just want to try and position our extension in here. Now with that bolt loose, try and reach up in there, remove that the rest of the way. Now from underneath, we want to get our two lower bolts. Go ahead and feed your bracket and the mount up into place. I went ahead and put some anti-seize compound on our bolts. We're going to get our 2 lower bolts started. Once we have those in, we'll go ahead and get the 2 upper bolts started by hand. We do the same for those. We put some anti-seize compound on those as well. Now we're going to take our forward upper bolt here, and we're going to reach up over the mount and get that started by hand. And thread that in as far as you can by hand. With all 4 of these installed, we're going to come back and tighten them down with our impact gun. Now, in tightening these here, you want to make sure that they're just good and tight. I'm going to tighten up our rear upper bolt next. So at this point, we're going to slowly lower our motor down a little bit. And we want to install the forward mounted bolt that goes through the unibody here and into the bracket. Lower. You might have to raise or lower that motor, move it around a little bit to go ahead and get this to line up. Now that we have the forward bolt installed, we're going to do the same for the back bolt on this mount. Install our horizontal bolt from the bracket into the motor mount. In doing this, you'll have to raise and lower the mount itself. Get that to line up. Now that we have the bolt set in place, let's get that nut started by hand. Now, in our particular vehicle, we have it up on a lift. We're going to lower our jack and remove this from the vehicle so we can lower it down and gain access to the upper bolts. If you're on the ground using your floor jack, you're just going to go up into the engine bay, and we want to install the 2 upper bolts on that frame mounted bracket. Now at this point, we can see that the 2 upper bolt holes are not lining up. So what you can do is use your jack, and you're going to go ahead and raise up the motor, and you can see the bracket moving, lining up those bolt holes as they should be. Once those are lined up, go ahead and get your bolts installed. We put some anti-seize compound on these threads. go ahead and tighten those down. With those upper bolts good and tight, let's go back underneath and finish tightening everything down there. Let's tighten down our horizontal bolts here for that bracket. Let's torque down that horizontal motor mount bolt. We're going to put our wrench on the bolt side and put our torque wrench on the front here. And we'll torque that to 45 foot-pounds. Go ahead and remove your jack supporting that engine. Before we drop our tray down inside, don't forget to reinstall the electrical connector to our button right here. The back side goes over the stud. Line up our front bolt over here. Let's go ahead and start getting our hardware on. I'm going to install the nut onto the stud down below. Just going to reach down along the back here. Go ahead and get that started. I'm going to take another bolt here, drop those down inside. And snug that down. Don't have to be super tight, you just want that to be bottomed out. And go to the nut on the back side here. Same thing here. Once that nut bottoms out just a little bit more, get our front bolt here. We'll install our fender well bolt right here. And we'll go ahead and snug that down. Once that bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. Just want to gently snug that into place. I'm going to take our fuse box here. I'm going to line this up onto our tabs. Should have 4 tabs. Push it down. Lock that into place. We're going to install our wire harness here. And feed this back down. We're just going to push our plastic tree back into the battery tray. We have our battery harness here. I'm just going to press that back into front there. Let's go ahead and install our battery. Install the negative battery cable. Make sure it goes down all the way. We'll tighten the bolt. Install the wheel. Once you have the wheel in place, we're going to start all of our lug nuts by hand. Let's go ahead and snug those down. Torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.